Hey everyone, welcome to the latest episode of Weathering the Market. This is meteorologist Kailey Carey.
And I'm meteorologist Dion DeLeo.
And I'm head of marketing, Emily Creevy.
And today we're going to talk about something very exciting. We're going to be talking about a pre-plant projection, just kind of what we're looking at as we head into this planting season. Anything off the bat that you guys want to say or that you're noticing?
Well, I think first and foremost, I think we should probably kind of break into the driving behind all this, and that is the INSO, right? And talk a little bit about that, and then maybe kind of dive into the drought a little bit.
Yeah, I think that sounds great because currently La Nina, we are still in a moderate La Nina, strong. And so when that tends to happen, it's very comparable to what we were dealing with last summer. We look at above average temperatures kind of across the board, as well as below average rainfall. For the most part, the southern half of the US and most of the regions that get a lot of rain during this, I guess you could say, La Nina timeframe is specifically just the Pacific Northwest. And honestly, that's kind of been the trend. And then when you start to look at the long range outlooks, that's what we're looking at too. But one region worth pointing out, and Dion, I don't know if you've seen this yet, or Emily either, is the Ohio River Valley. That region is anticipated to get quite a bit of rain, not over just the next couple months, but over the next, I would say, several to 6 months. Because when you look at the long range models, there's always been an above average rainfall total for the Ohio River Valley. Have you guys seen that?
Yeah, absolutely. With the forecasted INSO projection expected to be right now, it's expected to remain at 60% through the remainder of the spring, and then with a pretty solid chance of us moving into more of a neutral phase by the summer. That's going to keep a lot of precipitation in the outlook for that part of the country.
Yes, and I guess you could say the good news with that is that there are a lot of crops over there, so it looks like they're going to be okay. But one area of concern is that we're still looking at Western Iowa. So currently that area, they are still in, there is a small section that's in extreme drought, but for the most part, I would say about a third of Iowa and the western third is actually dealing with drought-like conditions. And that's going to be one of the main areas that we continue to watch, because with La Nina continuing throughout the early portion of summer and then even on to neutral, and then a moderate La Nina is forecasted to return, I would say by August, October, September, that indicates that that region could still be dry. And the implications of a dry Iowa, what are we looking at here, guys? That's going to affect what? Corn, soybeans?
Yeah, corn, soybeans, and then I think eventually wheat.
Yes, exactly. And speaking of wheat, another region that will need to be monitored is definitely going to be Kansas and Nebraska, because especially the western half of Kansas and almost all of Nebraska, they're under drought-like conditions. And I would say do you think they're in worse shape than Iowa at this point?
Absolutely. You know, they had a very rough latter half of last year, and that's certainly carried over. And that's largely in part to the La Nina pattern that's gone on, and the moderate to strong La Nina that we've had. And unfortunately, there's been periods of precipitation this winter that has been very, very beneficial, but it just hasn't been enough. You know, it hasn't really been enough to really help out that part of the country.
Mm-hmm. And I would say another specific region worth monitoring is the Panhandle of Texas. And
yeah, that's right. That's right. I think there's much of the Panhandle of Texas is classified anywhere from severe to exceptional drought, according to the U.S. Drought Monitor, which as we push farther into the spring and eventual summer, yes, irrigation is in place because that's a part of the country that typically sees drier conditions in general. However, how much drought is too much drought, you know, and unfortunately, it's just not looking good for the Panhandle either.
And I feel like they've been in a drought for a long time now, it seems.
Yes, you're right, Emily, because we were actually talking about this even last summer, because there was basically, typically in the desert Southwest, there is what they call a monsoon season, and they actually do get some rain, but that actually never took place. And with the lack of rainfall in the desert Southwest, there's been very low moisture, low humidity. So it's just been dry. There hasn't been basically any help there for quite some time. And so we're just continuing to see that drought grow. So that is something that we are going to be needing to monitor. So when we start to talk about crops, though, that mainly implies that's going to impact cotton. We're going to be watching corn and soybeans because of western Iowa. The Ohio River Valley looks to be fine, so corn in those regions should be okay. But we are going to be watching Iowa and Illinois. And that's going to carry on for corn and soybeans. And something, I don't know, interesting to talk about with soybeans. I don't know if you guys remember this last year, but they were almost getting too much rain for soybeans just along the Mississippi River Basin.
That's right. I think there were concerns of kind of some of inundation in that, and especially along the Mississippi River Valley, where they were concerned that that it was too much moisture.
Do you think that's going to be something that we're going to have to watch along the Ohio River Valley?
Definitely, I definitely think so, especially because we were coming from the moderate La Nina, and they've easily seen an abundance of rainfall and precipitation through the winter. And then, of course, as we move to a more neutral pattern and then potentially even back to a La Nina, that's something that I think that they're just going to continue to see.
I know. And typically we always say rain is a good thing because it is. But sometimes, once again, too much rain, like what we're seeing happen right now in central Brazil, it tends to slow things down and makes it a little bit harder.
Right.
Something else worth noting before we go is that the current placement of the La Nina, the placement of the cold water versus the warm water, have you guys seen how that possibly affects a track of hurricanes and that we might be seeing more hurricanes push a little bit further east?
I think we're looking at the latest prediction for La Nina as well as a few other teleconnections. Right now, I think the latest forecast is predicting an above average to very active hurricane season, at least for the Atlantic and for potentially even for North America.
Yes, very much so. And with those storms possibly tracking further east, it's not a guarantee, but it is a possibility because also in second year La Ninas, which is what we're kind of heading into, hurricanes do tend to move a little bit further east just due to the placement of the water. And that could indicate slightly more rainfall for the East Coast and the Southeast, which would be beneficial for cotton in those regions as well. So I don't know, just something to watch.
Yeah, at least in the pre-planting in the early phase. I think once if that carries on too far into the bowling stage, then we could have a problem.
Exactly, Dion. Well, thank you guys so much for jumping on today. If you have any questions or want to talk weather, we would love to hear from you. Bye, guys.
Thanks.